I've heard that the best amount to aim to grow by week after week is 4%.
Your permission
Period.
slip to raise your standards
4%
and
might
live
not seem like a
an
lot,
amazing life.
but over
really
time,
hit the jackpot
4%
by most of the
adds
world's
up.
standards, even though most of you think it's still not enough. What's going to make things magnificent on your terms, not somebody else's terms?
But if you're on an awakening journey and you have recognized that those are there, you have taken the most crucial step to get out of that, which is to become aware that it's actually happening.
This is your last chance. You take the red pill, you stay in Wonderland, and I show you how deep the rabbit hole goes.
And welcome to the Joygasmic Life podcast. If you're new here, welcome. I'm so glad that you found your way here and you're in for a treat, because here we are sharing the top tips, hacks, and tools that our community of conscious women mothers have found to really work to make a difference in how they parent and how they can keep their calm and cool even when their kids are driving them crazy. Each week, I interview guests who are bulletproof moms, badass women running their own businesses on the leading edge of consciousness, who are here to support people in getting the skills, knowledge, and tools they need to put into practice what it is to walk their talk and be conscious spiritual women in the world. Our topics range from optimal nutrition to mindset hacks to tantra and everything in between. If there's a topic or an expert you'd like to see interviewed, drop me a line on my Facebook page, and I'm happy to see if we can arrange that. Remember, if you love the podcast, there's so much more on our website, bulletproofmoms.com, and we would so appreciate that you subscribe, share our podcast with your friends, and give us a 5-star rating on iTunes or wherever you're viewing this, as it helps us reach more people. Remember, if we talk too slow, you can always speed us up. I know I love to do that, and without further ado, here is our next guest.
What were you just saying? So, I asked Deanna if he'd record a whole series with me, a whole season with me of podcasts, and we're working on that. But before we get started, I wanted to share a little bit about our story, how we met, and yeah, just share some of that journey. Because it's pretty magical, I think. Yeah. Once upon a time, there was a site called nomadsoulmates.com, and I met the lady who founded it. Her name's Elena, and that was enough for me to sort of pay attention. And I saw her posting some events in Bali when I was in Bali in 2015, 16, something like that. And she kept running it for many years. I met her on the beach in Thailand. We talked about her site for a little bit. I thought about working for her for a bit too. And then fast forward many, many moons. It was like December, January, February 2019?
Yep.
Something like that. January 2019. I decided it was time to get serious about manifesting a life partner and a wonderful man who exceeded my standards.
Thanks, Ed.
And yeah, I went looking on Nomad Soulmates and Spiritual Singles, and I sent out like 158 messages and got some replies back, but it was super overwhelming. I was just like, oh my gosh, what just happened? And Daniel, right from the get-go, was like super exciting. I was just like, who is this guy? It's like his profile was like he'd so like a flute player and a hypnotist who lived in a van in the woods, and I was like, who the heck is this guy? He must be really cool. And so I sent him a message, and that sort of sparked some stuff. How about you? How did you end up in that conversation with me online?
Through www.nomadsoulmates.com.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. Actually, we're at my aunt's house right now, and I remember being in the kitchen about 2 years ago, something like that.
You're so tall. I have to just like make the...
And my cousins were like, why don't you go on online dating apps? Because I'd have them like off and on it. And so they encouraged me to sign up for Tinder, Bumble, and OkCupid. And I had no responses whatsoever that made sense because, as a van dweller, like, it's like not very. It's like, oh, okay, so right now I'm at my aunt's house for 3 weeks. I might go here. I might go there. I am going to Bali for a month. That's, so it was like, how am I going to date? And I was like, well, there's got to be something online, and that popped up, Nomad Soulmates, and I was like, all right, I'll just do my profile, send it off, and sort of I didn't do much on it until you sent me a message, and the rest is history.
The rest is history. They don't know.
Yeah, the rest is
the rest is our history. Sorry, that's it.
That's it. So,
no. What happened? I don't know. I remember sending you a message, and it's so interesting because I messaged a whole bunch of people, and each of them had like a different feeling. It's like sending out like random tendrils into the dark, and you're just like, I don't really know what's going on here. And I remember when I sent you a message, it was like, oh, this feels like there's like the sense of imagination that percolated really quickly. You said something about a network of off-grid living spaces, and I was like, ooh, tell me more about that. And yeah, and then you did, and I wrote you a book, like a book. This is like huge message. And then I didn't hear back from you for a bit.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, oh, what happened? And what happened?
I was in northern Florida in the woods writing messages to you. And I responded to the book with a book, so equally length. That was one thing that was great, is the online profiles of everyone. That's what kind of got me, like, I couldn't deal with it anymore. It's like seeing the same profile over and over and over. That was like somewhat filled out, sort of like, I like to do things that humans like to do. Like, here's pictures of me being a human, doing human things. Yeah, and so that's what got me up. And then to see a profile where it's like, oh, this is like, her profile was thought out and long, and like provided all the information. Is like, I was like, I can evaluate, like, is this acceptable? Is this not? Like, I don't have to be like, so what's your situation? Like, give me all the information. It was there, so we were able to meaningfully jump off into a conversation that was effective in terms of navigating dating right away.
Online dating,
yeah.
Instead of like, hey, you like coffee? I'm like, I already know he likes coffee. That's okay.
And so, yeah, in Florida, what happened was I was like, shut the lid of the computer, and I was like, I'm not going to keep checking or something. Like,
super important. Oh my gosh.
I'll just send it, and she's not sending me something back, but like, maybe she's busy. I don't know. Like, so a week went by, and you sent me that message.
It's like, hey, I was hoping to hear back from you. Didn't hear from you.
So I rewrote it.
You rewrote the whole thing.
Sent it.
It was brilliant. It's totally brilliant. That's just like, oh my gosh. One of the things I remember is that, like, literally every paragraph that I had, you had, like, specifically responded to, like, paragraph by paragraph. Just like, boom, here's my thoughts, and reply back to that. Boom, here's my thoughts back, and reply back to that. And it was, like, super good, because one of my personal, like, pet peeves is when I ask people questions, and they don't give me specific answers back. It's like, hey, what's your favorite color? And they're like, well, the sky's really pretty. I'm like, so you, like, didn't push that button, which is, I felt this, like, really great sense of reciprocity and connection, and yeah. And then after a couple of messages, we arranged a Skype call and started chatting on Skype there for a bit.
Yeah.
We have documentation of all of that.
Great.
Not the videos so much, but the chatting.
Yeah.
And I remember trying so hard not to message you back. I would watch these. I had these like YouTube videos. It was like a dude being like, "Ladies, if you're online dating somebody, here's how to not fuck it up." And I would just like be like, "Oh, I have to send him a message. I just want to know what's going on in his life." And I would just watch the videos instead. And he'd be like, "Whatever you do, don't send him 30 emojis." I'm like, "Okay, I try really hard." It was super funny. I just wanted to talk to you a whole bunch. And yeah, and then we moved. You sort of started the like questions. You showed up to. We had our like first conversation. It was like, I don't remember so much about that other than it was like kind of chaotic. I was in an amusement park taking care of like Alex and two friend kids in West Edmonton Mall, and we had arranged to have our phone call that day, and I didn't think I was going to be in Edmonton Mall that day, so it's like kind of hectic. That's what I remember the most about that conversation. Yeah. And being like, okay, that seemed interesting. I remember also being like, is he like, because you had said something about aliens in your profile, and I've met a lot of people who are like really conspiracy theory oriented to the point of like freakish compulsion and like annoyingness. So my first like conversation around that was like, how into aliens is he, and on like what sort of spectrum is that? And I remember you being like, okay, he passed is good, like he's interested in it, but like not on the paranoid freaked out section.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, go ahead.
The questions were an important part. That was one thing too, where it was like the intentionality behind the profile and the communications, and then we did swap questions. Like, here's a block of information about me. Let me rephrase that question you asked me. I'm responding to, and like just like, and what about you, sort of thing. And then here's another question. Yeah, I think for the dates, we ended up doing, like, I remember writing down, like, oh, these are the questions I'd like to cover with her, sort of.
Yeah, you'd come prepared with, like, some questions, or I'd come prepared with some questions. I think I had, like, an ongoing list for a while.
Yeah.
And part of that was, like, okay, this is a random stranger on the internet who I'm, like, thinking about being life partner with and maybe making babies with. Like, how do I figure the heck whether this is a good fit or not? And in even past that first Skype call, like I was talking with other people through that whole conversation because I was just like, I don't know, have I figured this out yet? Is this the person? And so I was just like, what are those questions? And figuring out whether there was good fit. So then I needed to know, like, you know, I had mentioned like wanting to have more kids in my profile, so that was like either a deal breaker or not, but like something that excited you, so that was really good. And then yeah, it's just like, how do you been through a number of relationships, being like, what is your relationship with your like familial trauma, like, you know, and talking through those kind of things. And I remember hearing your response and being like, oh, like not only has he processed a bunch of it, but he's like aware of how he's processed a bunch of it. I was like, whew, we're like in the, you know, in the clear. Yeah, I remember having good feelings about that. And then all of those questions I eventually typed up into 100, it was like 100 questions or something we went back and forth on. And having decided that we were going to talk to each other every day, having questions that we wanted to get to know about each other was super helpful, because an hour every day is like a lot of time to spend in a conversation for a lot of people. Hey, yeah. How was your day? And it's like, I wasn't particularly interested in how your day was. I was more interested in whether you were eligible bachelor material for like not having to go through the process of like seeking again. That was like a huge part of it for me. Yeah. And then somewhere along that, okay, this is a really good place. And then we started planning our first trip. Mm-hmm. Yeah, which was, you flew to Calgary. I'm super happy. I feel super happy when I think about that. Yeah, because you were in Bali for part of that month too.
I was, so it was a lot of geographic movement. So I was like in France, and then I went to Michigan, and that's where my cousins were like, get on online dating, and then I went down to Texas, and then ended up thinking, oh, I'll go to Bali for an opportunity, and there was a lot of stretching of myself, through this geographic displacement sort of behavior. And then I was in Florida waiting to go to Bali, and that's when the communication started happening. And came back and then flew to Calgary, and then you flew to Atlanta, and then we drove to Michigan again, and then I drove to Calgary.
We did like a 2-day road trip from Atlanta, where I met your mom, to Michigan, where I met your aunt, which is the house we're in now. And then I was like, okay, we're good. Like, he's met my family. They approved. I've met his family. They don't scare me. They're really nice, because those are important to both of us. And then, and then you were like, okay, well, I'm going to drive to Calgary and come live with you now.
Yeah.
I was like, please, yes, let's do that. And I had been in Calgary for about 2 years prior to you showing up there, close to 2 years. And I had a 6-month lease on a house. So we had that house with my roommate and Alex, and for about 3 months, I think.
3 months, yeah.
Something like that. Yeah, I remember, oh my gosh. Like, I started traveling because of the weather for a good part of it. And, like, Dan also travels to avoid cold weather because it's no fun being in a van in, like, sub-zero temperatures, Celsius. So Calgary had, like, a typical Calgary winter spring, which is like, it's spring. Oh, it's snowing. Oh, it's spring. Oh, it's snowing. And every time it snowed, I was like, oh my God, he's going to leave. It's so bad. The weather's so bad. It was like, I was so scared you were going to go. And you were so awesome. Just like, oh yeah, like, let's go pick Alex up from his school program together and go for walks in the park. And I got to be with dog.
Yep.
Get to have a dog. It's super cool. And then, yeah, I mean, I'm going to talk more about, like, circles of commitment in, like, a specific video, I think.
Okay.
Like, in more detail. But, like, that was definitely part of, we sort of did this, like, hey, what's living together for 3 months like? And do we want to keep doing this after that? Was, like, very much part of the conversation.
Yep.
Yeah.
I would say that one thing to talk about, too, is the sense of undeniable yes. That was a series of questions that's like, before we actually met, it's like, what are the questions you need answered before you get to an understanding of, yes, this is the thing you want, it can happen. Like, what would that look like? And it's like, pretty much we got to a point where it's like, I just need to, like, smell you. Does that work? Like, I'll smell you and I'll give you my answer, like yes or no.
Yeah.
Sort of like we've covered all the other things.
All the stuff that this one could come up with. We covered all of that before we met in person.
Yeah, and that was really helpful. And then from there, the sense of the circles of commitment, that was really helpful for me too, because in the past I've had like navigating a shared space with another person, being like, well, what's on the table is like an entire life partnership. It's like, we can't really be super casual about it, but like, you kind of have to be in the dating world or something. Like, there's this like denial of that gravity of the situation, where it's like, well, we are kind of like fooling around with the lives, in terms of like partnership or anything like that. So having that, talking about it, acknowledging it, and then working through those circles of commitment was helpful.
Yeah, like, you wouldn't have driven to, I think we did that undeniable yes, like, before you even flew to Calgary.
That's right.
Right, so we'd already gone through all of these, like, does this make sense logically? Like, do I like the way that he's presenting information? Do I like the things he's presenting? Do they seem like they make sense and like they would fit in with what I want for my life and how I am? And does it seem like I would fit in with him and his life and how he is? Because I'm like, hey, I'm me, but I also have a kid. So that's, like, part of the experience, and sort of talking all that through. And yeah, and I think your undeniable yes was like 2 things, and mine was still like 15 or something.
Something like that.
Like, I still had a pretty long list. I was like, I need to make sure this and 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 this, and yeah.
But also, like, navigating the nomadic relationship online to person. I was already like, the synchronicity around us was like, remember I had this plan to go north. I was like, I'll just go north.
Yeah.
Like, in the summer, I'll go north.
Yeah.
And that really looked like it was the same sort of plan. Like, I'm just going through Canada. It's like there wasn't this huge sort of like, it's like, yeah, those 3 days in Calgary and then your time in Atlanta to Michigan, but those were isolated weekly events. Like, my life, I didn't choose necessarily to move in with you at the time I actually moved in with you. That was like something that we developed through those circles of commitment, I would say. And that, like, even though I was living with you, I was already planning on van lifing through Canada. So there was that sense of like overextension. Something that, like, you might, like, you'll need to navigate if you're going through an online to person or any sort of relationship. That was like the universe kind of set that up for me in a really beautiful way, where it's like it's like, why not, sort of, because there was a sense of like bigness to it.
Yeah, I think I don't remember like what kind of commitment we had with that, like, moving in together, whether it was like, let's try this out for a month, or whether it had a specific timeline. I think we were pretty enamored by it.
But we weren't like, it wasn't like, be here for 3 months. That was like too much of a commitment.
Yeah.
It was like, well, 2 to 4 weeks.
Yeah.
And like, you'll van life somewhere.
Yeah, it's here. Like, if it doesn't work, then yeah. I mean, when you arrived, I sort of thought you would like come be with me for a couple of days and then go be in a van somewhere else. Whereas you, I think, you'd done a fair amount of driving and travel before that.
Way too much.
Way too much. And you were like, oh, I get to be somewhere for a while, which, like, I totally now understand. Probably could have anticipated if I had thought it out. But, yeah, there was this place of, there was a sense of like, oh, he's going north anyways, so like, it felt like synchrodestiny. Synchrodestiny. And then there was this sense of being able to like let it go if it really wasn't a good fit, right? Because at that point there was sort of more of a, if this doesn't fit out, well, he won't live in the room in the basement anymore, or he can go live in his van for a bit if it's like too much or it's too intense. And we just dove right in, and it was really great. Yeah. I didn't have a plan. I was like, I don't plan for when it goes bad. Yeah. It was a huge piece. It was a huge piece. It was like, don't make plan for the failure of it. Yeah. Yeah, same. I was just like, well, let's just operate as if this is gonna work. And I mean, I did a lot of like thinking and looking and pondering before getting to that point. But then when I got to that point, I was like, okay, like this is best bet. All eggs in the basket. I don't eat eggs. All tofu in the basket. And and then somewhere in that 3 months, we were like, okay, well, let's go van life together. Your van wasn't big enough because it only had 2 seats, and there's 3 of us in the Dawa, and not enough space to sleep. So then we got on this whole like looking for an RV adventure, which was intense and challenging, and probably would have been a lot easier if we had an extra like $30,000 to deal with. Yep. We looked at some great, terrible RVs from the 70s, 80s, and 90s, and ended up with a Chevy Express van, which is like the long, thick, and like girthier version of the Astro van, which is an ongoing joke that we have, which is great. Yeah, and so you like found that in like 2 days, because we had our first trip planned, and we thought we'd given ourselves like a month to find an RV, and 3 weeks in it was just like, this is not working, and the one we had our eye on fell through, and then the next one we had our eye on fell through, and then the next one was like, it might be, it was like, I found that part on eBay. That was such a oh my gosh, was like, in order to fix this, you need some miscellaneous part that no longer is manufactured, but I found one of them on eBay from the US somewhere for like $80. I was like, I'm gonna order it. And then we, at some point, was like, this is ridiculous. Like, let's just get a new vehicle that's like not an RV. And so you found the van and or a Jeep Cherokee. We were looking at it, or Jeep Laredo or whatever. You probably remember. I don't remember.
It's a red Jeep Grand Cherokee.
Should have been way too small.
It
Oh
had
my
a
god.
tow package. We could tow a trailer.
Right. Yeah, a current van has a tow package.
It does.
It's important. Yeah. Yeah, so then all of a sudden we had, like, in like 2 days, we went and like looked, maybe one day.
That was according to our schedule. Though. We had set up a schedule. We were in this like, we'll have an RV by then. So it's like, it didn't work out. So it was like, well, we could either push back our travel plans, or we could just get whatever's here and go for that.
Yeah, we drove like just north of Calgary and
Yep.
picked up the Chevy Express. It was filthy. Oh my gosh, it's still a bit filthy.
Yep.
There's still places we haven't cleaned the dirt out. It was like an old work van. Not an old, it was like a new old work van that had been like really, really used by some rig dudes it was like full of little bubblegum bits and
It's clean
so
now.
much dirt. Yeah. Yeah, it is clean now. And yeah, so we did a friend at the Earthship and then visited my cousin in Prince George, and then we just like went from there. I think we went back to Calgary, and then we went to Seattle and down through towards like Denver-ish area, and then Memphis, and then Michigan, and then Denver, and then Utah, and then Michigan again, all before like September, and then
Mexico.
That was great. We did so many hot springs.
Yeah.
I love the hot springing. Dan brought hot springs into my life because you'd sort of like organized your life and travel around hot springs before we met.
Yeah.
Hot springs and Wi-Fi.
People are like, when they hear about van life, they're like, where do you take showers? It's like, I go into hot springs.
It's great. I highly recommend it.
Smells like sulfur all the time, but you don't care because you're so relaxed.
Yeah. Yeah. And, yeah, and like, I did a lot of the driving and the householding because you were doing a lot of the working.
Yeah.
And that was like interesting and challenging in its own ways. And then just before we left the U.S., we had like, had we booked flights to Mexico or not when we got that news? I don't think so.
About my work stuff?
Mm-hmm.
No, but we did. With that was still kind of happening when we booked flights.
Yeah. We had like booked flights. I just remember that was like a moment when like our commitment deepened.
Yeah.
Because prior to that was like Dan had a really great job that had its own like.
It had the appearance.
It
had
had
the salary of a great job.
There we go. Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and it like at the beginning it seemed like a really exciting thing, but then by the end it was like, ugh, like not respectful of your person.
Not at all.
And your needs. And so, yeah, so like having your job transition to like not having a job, that was like, I remember that being a moment you're like, she still likes me.
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah. Duh.
Yeah.
And then we spent 6 months in Mexico.
Yeah.
Which is really epic.
It's great. So good.
Yeah. And March 30th, 2020.
Yep.
We're on day like 7 or 17 or something of like quarantine in Michigan House with mom and aunt and cousin of Dan's.
Yep.
And 4 dogs.
4 dogs.
Yeah. And we're still doing pretty good.
Yeah.
Pretty good is an understatement.
Aww.
Yeah. Yeah. We celebrated our like 1 year when we were still in Mexico twice because there's like 1 year of texting, talking, and 1 year of being in person. And yeah, super happy together. We've navigated being like house-based and van-based and
Internet-based,
and now
jungle-based, and village-based, and city-based, and apartment-based.
Yep, now like family household-based.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it feels good to like know each other in all of those different places. And, yeah. Exactly.
Oh.
What's like one of the best things about going from being a nomad single dude to a nomad dating dude? You could be really honest.
You know, the sense of connection, intimacy. Yeah, with being in a couple versus being single, there's more meaning. There's more meaning and connection and love, and there's more partnership and support. There is more interpersonal challenge, but like that's like par for the course of like interpersonal relationships. And so
it's a good thing you didn't date me like 4 years ago. That would never have happened. It would have been a disaster.
So that's some of the best, yeah. Because I mean, like I've had a number of experiences of it's like traveling alone, just being like I'm here alone. Nobody for weeks will ever know what I've eaten or give a shit about it. Like nobody cares what my like work troubles are. Nobody, everyone's just like it's like parent. You can talk to mom, friends, or whatever there is. It's just like whatever. It's just like some sort of work stuff, that sort of stuff. So it's like having partnership and stuff like that. That's been really wonderful.
Great. I'll make a note of keep on listening to your work woes.
No, don't. It's like, who cares? I don't have many.
You don't have so many work woes. No. But when we were doing lots of van travel, like you were super stressed about it. And that was super. I remember like one hot springing day, and you were just like in the hot spring being like, ah. I was like, relax, we're in a hot spring. You were like, ah. Yeah. For me, I mean, not being alone is huge. I was like technically never alone with Alex, but like single parenting's rough. And so it's really beautiful to have support and like those moments where I'm like, I don't know what to do next. Just be like, let's ask Dan. And you've been really amazing in that. And yeah, their intimacy is really wonderful. It's been better and better all the time, which is great. And like going on walks, I go on a lot more walks with you.
Yeah.
Which is really great because you like walks. And getting to cook for somebody else who cares and is like, oh, this is yummy. Like, seems really silly, but it's like you said, it's like for weeks on end, nobody, including myself, would care what I was eating. It's just like, oh, I have to feed the body or stop feeding the body for a while, depending on which phase I was in. Yeah, I'm like somebody to care for. Yeah, it's just great. And getting to go on adventures that like I wouldn't have chosen to go on my own. Like the whole van lifing in the U.S., like the whole U.S. continent thing. It's like I didn't want to fly through the airports. I didn't want to be there. I didn't want to travel through it. It seemed really scary to me. Like on par scary with like Morocco kind of in my mind. And then you're just like, oh no, I've done this a bunch and it's super easy and it's really nice and there's lots of forests and sort of normalizing that experience from like, this is terrifying, potentially really challenging to, oh, this is just like countryside in any other place. Except that in between there's like American commercialism, which was like its whole own, oh my god, of a thing to encounter. Yeah. I remember being like, oh, I just thought like gas stations had gas station stuff, but then like just seeing the volume across all of these different places and being like, wow, there are literally like hundreds of thousands of replicas of this exact same thing. That was like a little mind-boggling. Yeah. any advice for single dudes who might be considering dating moms or other world traveling ladies?
Single dudes dating moms. There's like a whole bunch of advice you can
That's
get.
like a whole podcast. That's a whole episode.
Podcast.
Okay.
Yeah.
Maybe just one piece or 6.
Well, the way you said it was like dating moms. There's like, it's better than you might expect. Just a piece of advice, where it's like, it's enjoyable most of the time. It's like it's part of. There's like preconceived notions of like, oh, this is like there's additional burden or something on the relationship because of the child, and it's like really like Alex was 7, 8 when I came in, and it's like he's a child, but not like it's so much better than I expected. You know? So that's
He's let you play video games without guilt.
I still have guilt. I was like, I played Stardew Valley with him like before this, and it was like, Elena's not coming down. I hope she doesn't come down.
God, we could work through that. Okay, in my mind, it feels like, I don't know, maybe not. My perception is that you get to play video games without guilt because of Alex or something.
Right. Well.
But one of my takeaways and wins is Alex much more rarely. Is that I don't know. It's more rare. There we go. That Alex asks me to play video games with him because he asks Dan first, which is great in my books because I could really care less. Except for occasionally I'll get really sucked into Minecraft, but in general it's like, yeah. I want to see your whole podcast series on like how to date moms.
Great.
Maybe not moms. I don't think dating moms would go over well. Actually, date a mom is a better way of putting it.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I would have been like pissed off if I found out you were dating moms in general. Anyway, I think that's good.
I think so.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Love you.
I love you. Mm-hmm.
Remember, if you love the podcast, there's so much more on our website, bulletproofmoms.com, and we would so appreciate that you subscribe, share our podcast with your friends, and give us a 5-star rating on iTunes or wherever you're viewing this, as it helps us reach more people. Even if I've tried to do this in the past and it's been unsuccessful or I've given up and I felt like I could never change, I can completely change.
Follow your breath and you contract those intrinsic muscles. As you follow your breath and you bring that breath all the way up to that pineal gland and you hold your breath.
One of the most valuable concepts that I personally learned is that in order to reach the level of success, self-confidence, and prosperity that you want, you have to brainwash yourself. Yes, brainwash yourself. See, either way it goes, you're going to be brainwashed. But the question is, who's doing the brainwashing?
Hey guys, thank you so much for being on that journey with me. It's been a work of love to create such a journey, and I invite you to come and be part of the tribe, come be part of the experience, and get your full access pass so that you can see all of the things that are being created, experience all of the things that are being created. This is literally just a demo and just a toe in the ice of what is available in terms of audio and content that is highly programmable into your subconscious in your highest possibility. And so I thoroughly encourage you, if you are into personal development, if you watch this thing all the way to the end, there's clearly something here for you, and I want to have you as part of the tribe. So I love you. Have a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful day, and I'll see you on the other side in the tribe.
Sugar addiction and addiction in general, and she filled me with this beautiful knowledge and power that I always knew was inside me, but just needed, I think, a little bit of coaxing to come out. I can actually tell that there's been a big shift, and it's not just superficial. It's on a fundamental level. my thought processes are different, and that's such a beautiful gift because I've been working really hard to get rid of this sugar addiction, as I'm sure a lot of people are. And you know, I lost a ton of weight and then I hit that plateau, and there's that one thing that's super hard to beat. And thanks to Elena, I think I definitely have it. This time I'll beat the addiction to sugar.
I'm on a big mission to end family trauma in this generation, and so I'm working with conscious moms to create a powerful change where we can become bulletproof, where we have no triggers, where our children cannot touch us no matter what they throw at us, so that we can be the kind of moms that we needed and the kind of moms that we want to be for this new generation, so that we can end rape, we can end trauma, we can end neglect, we can end sexual shame, we can end consumerism, we can end screen addiction, we can end all of these things by how we choose to parent and how we show up in the world. So I invite you to be here on this journey with me, and I'm looking forward to seeing you on the other side. So get your name and email in that box and join me on this journey. It's going to be an incredible 7 days where you are guided every day to understand how to create better habits, how to not give up, and how to implement the 60-second hack to rewire your brain so that you know that no matter what's happening, you'll come back to a loving place fast. I love you. I'll see you on the other side.
Moment and your future, but also your perceptions of your past, so that you look at your past and your life and you already see all of the places where you have integrated this change and had been previously unaware of it. Thank you so much for being here today with me, and you've done great work today, not only for yourself but for our collective consciousness. I'll see you here tomorrow. Have a beautiful, beautiful day.